Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone's good. Sorry, let me just got my wallet in my pocket and it is bugging me. So let me just remove it if I can. Always what you need. There we go. Okay, hope everyone's okay. And thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate on a Friday, I kind of just chop and change the times. And so for those of you that can catch them live, I do appreciate that. It's my son's birthday tomorrow. So this afternoon, I've got to run around like a headless chicken and get cakes and balloons and all that stuff. So that's where we all are. Okay, let's have a look at the charts because we've had a move, haven't we? We've had a very nice move from about 90K up all the way up to, well, just shy of 98,000. And for those of you that have a memory, you'll know that was a pretty significant level for us because it kind of tied in with some very significant EMAs, which we're going to have a look at. Now, obviously, price is sitting just above 95,000 at the moment, so there has been some pullback. But the point is, what is this major level we're retesting, and where does price go from there? Well, if we just look on the 3-day time frame, we're kind of used to this chart now, but I will blow it up just so you can see it a little bit better. And we've broken through that 94,500. The white line, let me get a pen here, which we've been, fighting with since probably mid-November. And it was a very strong breakthrough. I know we've had a slight pullback, but we actually haven't lost it at the moment. And if anything, it looks like we're just coming down for a retest. So my sort of, big picture, you don't really want to be looking at the charts all weekend. Just have in your mind 94,600, okay? As long as price is above that, it's fine. We start to lose that, we've got to ask questions. But that would be my big picture view. But it's a nice view nonetheless. We're starting to, really consider that actually we have formed some sort of double bottom. We're starting to break out. There's the bum line there. We're poking our head through. Natural that we would get some form of a Kobo before a further move up. Now, there might be other things in the way that stop that from happening, but we'll go into those when we get on the charts in a little bit. Let's just, I show it every week just so we've got some consistency within it, but Bitcoin dominance is not telling us anything. Altcoins have had some good moves, they've had some pullbacks. Bitcoin's had some good moves, it's had some pullbacks. Bitcoin is slightly up this week compared to altcoins, but we're talking less than 1% difference, and we're still hovering in and around that, well, just under 60% level. And as I said, unless we're breaking above 60 or we're losing 57, we're kind of just treading in no man's land. So there's nothing to report there. Total 2, it's not a chart I particularly enjoy looking at, if I'm being perfectly honest, but it has made a similar pattern to what Bitcoin has done. Potentially found some sort of bottoming pattern here. We've broken through. Now, we broke through this a bit earlier, this 1.25 trillion. We kind of retested it, but you can actually see, I think the times we've gone live, because these are 3-day candles, it's been below that 1.25. But if you just allow the candles to settle, you can actually see that 1.25 trillion has been pretty decent support over the last 2 weeks. And we are still above it. So as long as we can hold that level, there's a chance that altcoins may see some sort of decent movement, although my view on where that sits. And then we've got BitTensor. And I got to be honest with you, I'd sold, I think, just about all of my BitTensor yesterday. So we'll have a look when we're on the 1-day time frame. But basically, we've had a fairly decent rejection from this level in and around 295. And for me, yes, okay, we've had this V-shaped reversal, but we weren't able to actually break through that. It looks like we're potentially starting to break down. And I just thought, right, there's an opportunity here, take a sidestep, even if it's only a $10 sidestep. It's still fairly decent play. So that's currently where it sits. I got to be honest, and I will talk about it a little bit later on, I'm not sure I'm going to go 100% back into BitTensor. I think they're just better options to play. And as you know, I'm not in the subnet game, so I might as well have a look at some of the other ones. Now, the ones that I'm looking at, the timing isn't right for those, so it's about just picking that. But we'll go into that in a moment. But yeah, I'm not saying it's worrying, but I just don't like the fact we've broken through that. There's an argument to be said, well, all we've done is we've come back down and we're retesting this level here at 275, which, you know, bearing in mind, I've just talked about Bitcoin, I've just talked about Total 2 breaking through levels and then coming back to retest it. I get that argument. And we've been down to this level a few times as well. So again, if you're wanting to just move away from the charts this weekend, I'd have 275 on your mind if you're just flicking through TradingView. We're on it now though, so things could happen fairly quickly on that. Okay. Weekly time frame, Bitcoin, and as you can see, that move up, you know, we're getting back into regions we've not actually seen since the beginning of November, that sort of 96, 97, 98,000 level. But I mean, I'll zoom in because I appreciate some of you are probably watching this on a phone. But we've had a fairly decent rejection. I don't think it's going to take many of you a great amount of imagination as to where that is, given what I always talk about. So 20 EMA is in red, wicked perfectly up to it with a rejection. You throw in the 50 EMA as well. You can now actually start to see why perhaps we've had such a strong rejection. Now we'll use the term strong. We haven't lost a lot of that green candle, but we have, you know, bounced from that fairly hard over the last 24 hours. And it's the 50 EMA weekly time frame, one of the most important EMAs, particularly on that time frame, to determine bull or bear market. And for those of you that have been paying attention over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about, you know, again, where we sit within this market is yet to be decided, but we have talked about the fact that when we have lost the 50 EMA, we typically do see a retest back up to it. And it's that level, that decision, that really drives where we're going. Well, we've had that retest now. We've come up to the 50 EMA. Still got 2 and a bit days left on this candle, and I'd say, unfortunately, I probably have to give it a couple more as well, but we have seen an initial rejection. We see that, you know, time again, we had it here, move up to the 50 EMA, rejected. I mean, we had it a couple of times really during the end of the beginning of 2022, but that sort of bear market. And then similarly in 2018, kind of similar areas before we ended up breaking down. So don't have to do anything yet. Don't need to panic just yet if you aren't already panicking, obviously. But we've got to be realistic. We've had that move up, the one we've been talking about. We haven't broken through it yet. Now, I wasn't expecting to break through it first time. It's such a significant level. We've been down there, and we actually did hit it with volume, as you'll see when we go on to, you know, vectors as well. There was a strong move up. But it's going to take some time, I think, to well, at least a second attempt to get through. So just be a bit patient with it. As I say, you know, big picture stuff. We get through 98,000, perfect. Although we have, unfortunately, other levels ahead of us. But if we lose 94,500, that's where you want to at least start opening up your charts again and questioning where we currently sit. And right now, we're just sat in the middle of that. So it's a little bit more of a sit down and wait, I'm afraid. We kind of tie this in with 12-hour time frame, liquidity zones, and the fibs that we've had on the chart for 2 years now, maybe going on 3 years, 2 years, I can't remember. But look, this move up, that strong move we talked about Tuesday, Wednesday, flew through it. We get to, what's its top at? Just under 98,000, burst through that liquidity zone. And then what's it hit? It hits the 618. And then we've started to see that bounce back from it. Now, on the 12-hour chart, yes, you can see why a rejection of the 618 might happen, but we haven't lost the trend yet. We're still making higher highs and higher lows. Granted, we're on the way down, so we need to see where that goes. And the argument could actually be had, 12-hour time frame, so not on the daily or the 3-day or the weekly, is as long as we stayed above 91,000, call it, we're still in that uptrend. And then, you know, you just got to say, okay, that's fine. We had a big attempt to get across a significant fib level. We've come back down. We've swept the liquidity. But as long as we hold 91,000, we're still making higher highs and higher lows. And that's the difficulty now, is it's a nuance that goes with how much time you want to spend looking at the charts and managing your portfolio. If you don't have the time, you stay on the daily, then you may have to sort of fluctuate. If you're happy to look at charts a little bit more and go on the 12-hour or lower, actually there's some evidence to suggest that maybe a pullback a little bit further is still not the end of the world. So just take that, you know, how that manages within your life fair enough. But I would suggest, I'd say big picture, 94.5. Going down the smaller time frames, let's just call it 91, easier round number, because this bottom here is around about 90 and a half. Okay, we'll update with new liquidity zones next week just to see where they sit, but I dare say they'll be sat somewhere between 98 and 100, just because of where that turned around. We'll start to see that build quite nicely there. And the absolute, ignoring higher highs, higher lows, you definitely don't want to be seeing it going below 88. But I think we'll have already got further alarm bells on that. But yeah, okay. ETFs have been buying this week. That's the interesting thing. It's funny, isn't it? It feels like even institutions suffer from FOMO, because the biggest day they bought for BlackRock, $650 million worth was on Wednesday. Yeah. Which was the day we saw that large move up to sort of 98K. And even yesterday, 315 million. So no small amounts. As a matter of fact, they are two of the three biggest over the last 3-week period. And the last 4 days, the net ETF inflows have been positive, with a little bit of selling yesterday, but generally those that do buy have woken up and started buying. I don't think there's anything really to write home about at the moment. I think there's still pretty much 50-50 over the 3-week span. So we haven't got that consistency yet, but there it is. And in terms of fear and greed, let's just close that ad. We're actually at 50, well, 49, neutral. Yesterday we were in greed at 61. So I talked about it, I can't remember if it's Friday or Tuesday, just the nervousness in the market. We can move, from greed to fear so quickly. I mean, we're talking 3 days ago, we were on 26. So Tuesday, we were on 26. Yesterday, we were on 61. We went from almost extreme fear into greed within the space of 36 hours. And okay, we've cooled off a little bit, but we're still in that neutral zone. People seem quite happy with where the market is. I wonder if that will be the case. We've also got to remember CPI came out as forecast, but sort of, not getting any hotter, which I'm sure helped. And I haven't got the chart ready, but let's just have a look. I know people talk about rate cuts. It still looks fairly high that we're not getting a rate cut, although we still have 12 days of data to help feed that. Is it going to load for me? Yeah, 95%. It's going to remain as it is. So we shall see where that one sits. Right. Anyway, let's get on to some charts. What am I on? Weekly time frame Bitcoin. Okay. There is the RSI at the bottom. Don't worry too much about that. As you can see, well, you probably can't because it's too small, but I will drop onto the daily in a second. Here was that move. And just with vectors and sort of the EMAs and my colorful candlesticks, you can kind of still see that move up there. I mean, the 50 and the 20 EMA running into each other, incredibly important kind of potential cross. And so we've had that bounce from it. Don't worry too much about it just yet. The levels, as we've mentioned. Now we go on to the daily time frame, and we can kind of see that move up that I talked about. Again, this is the green candle, daily time frame with a vector. I know we had a failed attempt at it the week before, but we got that sustained movement through the next day as well to help drive it through, eating into this liquidity zone at sort of 97 or the high 97s. And we've just had a little bit of selling off. Now, we did leave some vectors in our wake. And today yesterday we closed out that green vector candle. So that pullback may well happen. You can't really see it, but there is the 10 EMA here at 93.5, which is about the 50% level of the green vector candle that was caused or created on Tuesday. But actually, the upside movement, we've still got this little bit of a vector here and the 200 EMA maybe to move in towards. So, there's no, what should I say? How can I phrase this? There's certainly incentive to move price to the upside. And you've got to remember, and I know I sort of touch on it and I never really fully explain it, but those that move the market, they're selling into the price going up, okay? And they're buying as the price goes down. Just got to remember that narrative. So we don't bother bringing it up. Maybe I will on Tuesday. the sort of the net inflow and outflow charts as you see how price moves, and you'll actually see there's quite a lot of sells that go through in that direction. But there's still plenty of opportunity for this to move up as maybe they want to sell a little bit more. And we'll, you know, I haven't got the order book up and I'd have to set it up, which is why I won't waste your time now. But it'd be interesting to see where some of those orders, the clusters are, if they're around that 99,000 kind of level. And similarly, do we have, you know, some buys down here? I mean, on the daily, there is an argument to say the RSI is pretty high. Could we come back for a 50 retest? We haven't, you know, we only just retested it, so there's no necessity to get us back down there. The 20 and the 50 are about to cross over each other, maybe sort of giving us some sort of bullish direction as well. But when we go down to some of the lower time frames, actually, before we do, you know, it's hard, isn't it? Sometimes we've had it like that, and you could be like, oh, okay, we broke through, we're coming back down, we're Cobra in it, fine, that looks fine. But then someone could go, well, wait a second, actually, we could draw it like this. And all we've done is just hit the top of that channel. And so, you know, that's left to your own interpretation of how you want that to go. I'm trying to see where the best line is to draw that. It's pretty horrible. I'm not sure how I'm best drawing this. I mean, if I did it from here, it'd be better. So I could do that. I don't think it quite ties in with this one down here, though. No, we're probably pushing the envelope a little bit. Maybe. Okay. So there's that argument there. And that's why we turned around. Maybe we're just, you know, trying to fit that for our own purposes. And there's that line there where actually I'll put this one to white. If I can click on it. Maybe white. Blue's just as horrible, actually. Why can I never find a decent color to use? Green's even worse. Orange. There we go. Maybe there's that. So tough. It is kind of tough to play that. But that's what you can see on the day. We go down the 4-hour time frame. Those lines are just going to get in my way now. I'm going to have to remove it. Sorry. I'll leave that top one on. You can kind of see that move up here, the yellow line, but you can actually see this 800 EMA on the 4-hour time frame is exactly where we rejected from as well. I mean, almost to the dot, and then that move back down. And what you can kind of actually see, and you start to see it on the 4-hour, but on all the other ones, it starts to form. I'm going to have to get rid of this yellow line. Apologies. We talk about these bearish divergences start to form. So that RSI is going lower, and yet price is going higher. There's no guarantee of the time frame it's going to happen, but we know at some stage there's going to be a reset, and that is what is currently going on. And I would argue that, you know, we are holding the 20 EMA at the moment, so that could be sufficient. And we're kind of attacking this range of 95, 200. We basically hit 4 times over the last 20 hours, or 5 candles at least. We can't hold that. Then the next journey is 93.4, I'd say, eating in some of these vector candles. Just let that RSI reset. And I've started just to use this more and more as a sentiment indicator. Just, you know, do I need to panic buy or whatever? Well, actually, the RSI is pretty hot. There's no point buying. And it's working out quite well. Now, there is some sort of trend line here on the RSI, so maybe there's just a bit further. Falling on the RSI doesn't necessarily mean falling in price. But I would certainly, if you want to put the RSI on, I'd be kind of drawing that line and going, what is happening with price action when the RSI gets to that sort of 53.75 level, you know, because we could see a shift from that. It doesn't always have to go all the way back down, you know, it just needs to cool off, which is what it is currently doing. Let's minimize this again. We'll get rid of that. But in terms of everything else, yep, that strong move up unfortunately left vectors for us, and this blue vector candle is in the process of being just eaten through. Goes all the way down to basically 94,700, which kind of takes us to some other key levels we were talking about before. And then after that, as I say, a couple of vectors here now. This one, I mean, 200 EMA. So imagine that we fall all the way down, eat through all of these vector candles, we come to the 200 EMA, but it is at that 91,000 level we talked about, where actually you could make the argument that the RSI would have fully resetted. Everyone would have, you know, fear and greed would back down to low levels because everyone would have seen all of that just get eaten away. And then ultimately we could still form a bottom and then start to move back up. So it's just that fun and games, unfortunately, of where we find price. On the 1 hour, there is a bearish divergence again here and here, which is playing out. This is a bit closer now to it sort of getting into that oversold territory. Fine, you've seen it now. I don't need to have that on, but that was just so you could see. And then in terms of everything else, came back down, retesting that 50 EMA. We've been battling with the 50 EMA. We have, at the moment, we've lost it. We're below it. We've been down at these levels before. Maybe we get that move back up. But again, it only takes getting below 95,000 before we start having big gaps. And that gap down to 93,500 and the 200 EMA on the 1 hour time frame, unfortunately, looks very tempting. But as long as we remain in the cloud, we're still fighting chance of regaining that 50 EMA. But we need the vectors. We haven't had any vectors, and just been low volume in and around the 50. So we need to see that strong volume coming in. We've got a new 4 hour candle starting in 40 minutes. Maybe we'll get some better update from it there. Okay, let's have a look at some of the other ones. Just to actually, I will mention it. No, I'll save it to Tuesday. I don't want to go back and just talk about negative things. Big picture. Let's leave it. Let's go on to BitTensor. Weekly time frame at the moment. It's a lot of lines here. So what was this line here? 280. I can't remember why I drew that on thingy, but still within that kind of downtrend at the moment. Let's get rid of this white line, because on the weekly time frame, what I was just trying to say is up to the 10 EMA. So remember, we typically end up drawing ourselves back to EMAs. That's why we have them on there. Weekly time frame can take a while, but we lost the 10 EMA way back in November. We drove all the way down, and we're just bouncing back up towards. We finally retested it, but it's just holding us at bay at the moment, and it's only a 10, so it is easy to break through. But we just need to consider that whilst we're below it, we should be cautious. Okay, and I think Alan in Discord is very good at showing there's still opportunities to be made, particularly if you don't have to pay bed and breakfast, tax implications. But for me, I'm sort of not seeing anything I particularly like at the moment. That's why I made that decision to just get out, just for now. Daily time frame. So we've had that move up. The one vector we got through 50 EMA, obviously we lost it. We've been messing around. At least we're back at the 50. Okay, we're still above it. We're the right side of it, 275. And that's, if you remember on that 3-day time frame chart, I kind of drew a line here saying, maybe I'm giving it a bit of a bad rep. On the 3-day, we didn't have these. These were just wicks down here, and the body's actually closed on where the line is. So, there's an argument to be made. We've broken through, nice V-shaped reversal, consolidate in and around on this level, and we've managed to hold it to whether or not we break through. But we've got to get through that cloud, We've got to get through that cloud and then that move up. And I still stand by Gandalf 315, That's the level we've really got to get through. There's a decent sized move to be had from here, even just to retest that one. But we've got to actually see that come about. And not many altcoins are moving particularly well, except for some privacy tokens, which we'll come on to in a moment. In terms of sort of vectors and anchors, there's a little bit where we currently find ourselves, but it's only another couple of dollars to clear that one out. It's a much bigger one down at 230, but I think we can give ourselves a little bit of room. The last 2 weeks, we've been able to stay above 270. 265 level. So let's just keep that one in mind. If we start losing that, okay, well, this can be drawn back in. But for now, we're right on the battleground, 275. 4 hour, it doesn't really tell us a different picture, except for we've gone and lost the 50 EMA here. We are in a bit of a downtrend with it, and there is now a little bit of noise. This vector candle could be recovered, taking us down to the 200 EMA, around about 268. And again, that's fair enough. We've seen some previous price action down here, and we can maybe find a bounce from it. But once we lose it, we start to see that actually that strong move up we have does not present us with much support on the way back down. So why 275 for me is such a critical level. Let's go back. I want to talk about Dash and Monero. I mean, we covered them on Tuesday. There's privacy tokens. We know Zcash had its run, it's pulled back, which obviously had some fundamental analysis issues with devs leaving and all that kind of stuff. Fair enough. But there really does seem to be a great flavor right now for privacy tokens. You know, whether that is because all the criminals are using them, that's what the narrative would like to be told, or just people just are sick and tired of, having their assets under threat of constantly being taken or tracked or whatever, and they're just trying to, be smart about it. Who knows? It doesn't matter why necessarily their narrative is there. If we can understand it better, because then maybe we'll give us a heads up for when we can get out. But we can't deny that actually there's some real interest in privacy at the moment. And so there's an opportunity for us to exploit that, whether we want to play it relatively safe with spot, or we want to try and use leverage to try and move it. The problem we now have, though, is how do we get into these? Because they've had such strong moves recently that there's always a fear of not just it reversing, but it taking a significant reverse for a pullback, which could, if you're certainly using leverage, could end up wiping you out, despite it still remaining bullish. It's just having a pull off as people take a pullback as people take profit. So using Monero, but Dash is actually just as bad. This is the weekly time frame, remember. 2 weeks ago we were at 415. We peaked at 802. We 100% in the last 2 weeks. Naturally, you'd think there's got to be some sort of pullback, and the reality of it is that you could argue, even 10 to 20 would be a sensible one, but that is $220 away from current price. Same with the 20 EMA. So how am I looking to play this? As I said, Tau just isn't really doing it for me at the moment as an opportunity to try and make some money. And so I'm looking at maybe privacy coins. Now, I'm not going to leap in now. That's just not how I want to do it. And, we can gauge with the sentiment of the RSI, and we can say, look, there's a bearish divergence on the weekly time frame here. Again, no idea how long it's going to take to play out, but it certainly feels like sentiment is not in the right place. But if we start to see some pullbacks, I think there is definitely an opportunity to be had. I need to wait. And I will wait. And obviously, I don't use the weekly charts to try and find entrance. But even down here at sort of 500, let's say, for 10 EMA retest, it's sort of, if I can see that happening, I'm going to be looking with a lot more interest as to can I actually now find an entrance. That being said, there's probably an opportunity for a short. Now, it's very difficult to short a hyped up market. You try shorting silver at the moment, and it's not looking particularly good. And you look at Dash this week, it's nearly 3x'd this week. And so it just feels like, well, this has got to have some sort of pullback. There's no bearish divergence as of yet, because we haven't made a higher high, nor has the candle closed. But this could come all the way back down, losing another 50% of its value before you actually found some sort of logical entry position. But there's definitely something in it. We saw it with Zcash over a prolonged sort of like 2-month period. And even now it's kind of holding its own. Now potentially a double top on the weekly time frame. And you wouldn't, if it fell back to the 50 EMA, as painful as that would be, losing 50% of its value, from a chart point of view, you think, oh, well, it's absolutely fine. It's a natural pullback to a significant level after, some serious hype had gone into it. But let's just try and take some of these down on a bit more of a manageable time frame. So Monero daily time frame, you can now see actually it's pretty much been this week has really seen some good move away from what was that is a fairly healthy looking chart. I'm just making sure my face isn't in the way. Say what you like about it, but just coming back to the 50 EMA with regularity whilst always making higher highs and higher lows, it's what you want to see in an asset. Then we've suddenly seen this springboard. And my worry is it will return to the norm, and the norm could end up being here as the 50 EMA continues to climb, but it's still being $150 lower than it currently is. And so that just sort of says to me, great movement up. We've left some significant vector candles in its wake. RSI is off the chart at the moment. Don't get suckered in too much into the hype, and sort of wait for that. Now that's daily. This is probably for you to try and find a spot entry, if I'm being honest with you, and just be patient. Like, at some stage, it will come back and retest the 50 EMA, even if the 50 EMA has to climb all the way up to 700. If you're willing to be patient and the narrative is still there, whatever is driving this, then that's the time. Getting in now, you could end up losing half your portfolio value for just not being patient. From a from a leverage point of view, then you can start to look at some of the lower time frames and have a look. Now, this is the 4 hour. You can still see that natural movement, but instead of the 50, it's coming back to the 200 each time. So that's fine. But in terms of where we could go from here, we're still, we're coming back down. We've just retested the 20 EMA. I think if we can't hold that 20 EMA, then there could be a move down to 610, 50 EMA. Of Monero, sorry, I was about to say Zcash. Maybe there's an opportunity for an entry for short, but again, for me, I still don't really like using the 4 hour to find short-term entries. Now, as we start going down to the 1 hour, and if you dare, the 15-minute, you've just got to remember that you got to be watching the charts. You got to be on the charts to get in and get out, because you're using shorter time frames, so things can turn around a lot quicker. And suddenly, this 200 EMA is around about 6 cents. It's still making sense. But we can actually now see that where we were struggling to sort of break through the 20 EMA, this is where this double bottom has been forming on the 4 hour. And I'm on the hour, but that was where that is. So there's an argument to be had that actually we've broken through, we rejected off the neckline, we're waiting to see what happens. But the 50 EMA is the gatekeeper on the 1 hour time frame. We start closing below those, and say with red vector candles, I think there might be an opportunity for you to sort of enter in a short. And I would be looking, if I was, down to round about that level. But I would be watching the charts because, as I say, this is a hype. It can move very quickly, and it is still within that hype phase. Yesterday, if you look at Dash, where's yesterday? Was it yesterday? Sure it was. Sure I saw one stage, maybe it was the day before, it went from 68 down to 54. It was like a 20% drop, but it was nothing, like lasted a couple of hours, and then off it went again. And that's the risk that ultimately you play. So for me with Dash, I would kind of expect it to come back into this noise. Into this noise here, probably tying in with that 50 EMA. And I actually wouldn't be looking to short it. I'd probably be looking for a long opportunity with Dash. It's had some good movement over the last few days. The momentum seems to be there ahead of Zcash and XRM. So if you could get down to sort of that $80 level, $81, $80 level, probably be looking to try and take a long position from there. And I think this is, got triple figures on the cards for it. So that would probably be where I'd be looking. Certainly looking to sort of take some profit as we get back into here. And then can I sort of ladder a few exits out there and just see where it goes? I think that's some opportunity to have a look at. Sorry, I got a bit carried away with that. I think the point I'm trying to make with just looking at some of these is I'm trying to understand what I can do now with some cash from the Tau sidestep. Obviously, some will go back into BitTensor. But there are other opportunities for us, and I think we just got to keep our eyes on those. Even if I only spend 2 days trying to trade something here, and then I move some of that back over to BitTensor. I think there's those opportunities. I think that's what we as a group should be doing, instead of and I'm just as bad at this as well, just fixating on one asset's price. Don't think it's working too well for us. Right, let's have a look at quickly some others. We'll just stick with the dailies. Ethereum, so it's had its move to the 200. We've seen it before. It's been rejected from it. We've seen that before. Suddenly we can start to, piece this together. I'm gonna have to change the color again now. Piece this together a lot better. What's that? Maybe like that or something. It's definitely getting squeezed. The price is getting squeezed between these levels. Whether you want to go to 200 and the 800, I know we ever so slightly lost the 800, but it did regain it. My view is if the market continues trend down, this is obviously coming with it, and I reckon we will come to at least 3,000 as we clear out these levels here, and that will just form another higher low as we just get squeezed and squeezed. And typically that is what that causes that sort of explosive move. Can't tell you which way it is, but it feels like one of them is on the cards. What ones we really look at? I mean, BNB. I think BNB is actually looking pretty good. You know, again, some sort of bottoming pattern, broken through, looking at a Kobo, but we're above all of the EMAs that we should be. You know, the 10, the 20, the 50, the 200, all nicely in the line. We've broken through this level at 920. We've sort of dipped ahead above it. We've still managed to keep it as support right now. So looking good, you know, as good as it can be until the market tells us otherwise. Link, similar that it's broken above the 50 EMA. However, you know, that's kind of the level I'd be looking at. And actually, we haven't broken above that. So we're consolidating above the 50 EMA after rejecting out of the bum line, whatever you want to call it. So a bit more work there. Green vector candle through the 50 EMA. Always like what we like to see. Near, we're not really following anymore. Solana. Okay, Solana's, I'd put that there. Again, dipped its head. We've lost it at the moment. We are above the 50 EMA. And just look what we rejected on. It was the 800 EMA that we rejected. So, yeah, okay. Maybe it does need to come back down, recharge at sort of 340, 337 level for the next move up past the 800. It's a big level. XRP, for those that follow it, it's in a downtrend. Got to the 800 EMA, rejected from it. Let's just call it that's resting on the 50 EMA. I know it's ever so slightly below it, but it's not doing too bad. I think we're just getting squeezed now from sort of 230 to 182. I'm zipping through because I've been on for 40 minutes. VIX is still pretty low. Dixie, yeah, it had a flirt with 100, didn't quite get there. NAS, still trying to move up, just ranging near all-time highs. Can we get a breach of 7,000 today on the S&P? That's what everyone is looking at. We shall wait and see there. Gold, a little bit of a pullback, but nothing much. Silver, I mean, it was at 94 yesterday or the day before. Wild. Now at 91. This will be triple figures before the end of the month. Absolutely. It's not a cast iron guarantee, but it feels like fairly baked in. MicroStrategy had a bit of a loss. I'm just looking at the crypto ones. Coinbase coming back down into that range after rejecting off the 50 EMA. MicroStrategy also rejecting off the 50 EMA yesterday. So a move up. So a bit of a reset there. Level to look out for, 150. Loss of that. It's not much between that and 120. And as I said, I don't invest in this, but if we start losing $100, it may actually be worth investing for the next cycle. TauX, I just can never really judge what's going on with it, to be honest with you, but it's made a move back up to the 50 EMA. And Circle didn't quite get to the 50, but a strong rejection there. And I don't know if this has something to do. So Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, he kind of basically withdrew his support for the Clarity Act bill. And he's been on a few of the news outlets, so I will cover it on Tuesday. He's basically saying that the banks are trying to sabotage sort of stable coins and sort of customers' access to stable coins, which is why he's not happy with it. And he's lost his support. And funnily enough, yesterday, Circle, I mean, it only fell $5, but there's a lot of volume because it's a red vector candle there. So that's that. I think that's probably about it, to be honest. What I just will say, just to recap on it, decent move from Bitcoin. So we've got to be happy that we're seeing these moves. Cautious that it didn't get through the 50 EMA, although realistically, did any of us expect it to breach the biggest support resistance level for a bull and bear market on the first attempt? I certainly didn't. And so we're having that pullback. Stay above 94.5 over the weekend. we've got some chance of getting in there. You want to keep looking at charts a little bit more. You got till about 91. Loss at 91, we need to start asking some questions. And hopefully the picture over the weekend, beginning next week, will help us inform which side of the market we're at. You know, euphoric blow off top, or you know, complacency rally before we move back down. We shall have to wait and see. I think that's it for me. All that's left to say, I suppose, is try and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I certainly am going to try myself. Just look after your portfolios whilst you're doing that. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to drop us a note, message, DM, whatever in Discord. I'll try and help out as best I can. And other than that, I'll speak to you soon. Cheers now.